Gcuid is mise Seán Seosamh Dubhgáin. Rugó mé ar an ceann lá de 1933 agus tá mé an sin ó hí. Tá mé ina cónaí i Liscaninane Baile Chláir na Gaillimhe. Bhí mé fearmór agus tuíodóir.
John Joe, as you said earlier, you were born into this house. Can you tell us a bit more and what this video is about?
I've been lucky to have been born into a traditional thatched cottage built in 1848, where I was lovingly brought up by my late parents, Thomas and Bridget. May they rest in peace. Amen. I have lived in this house, which I have shared with my wife Nellie and family for over 60 years. I have always been interested in thatching. The following video is a collection of my interviews and presentations that I have done down through the years relating to thatching.
John Joe, when did you first start thatching?
I started thatching in 1951 at the age of 17 when I thatched the front of our own house.
How did you learn how to thatch?
I learned how to thatch from our neighbour and good friend, Mike Murphy, God rest him, who had been thatching and repairing our house for years. He was with me the first few days and taught me how to thatch a stroke and finish the stroke. I thatched the rest of our house on my own, and he was very satisfied with the finished job. He said he would never be needed to thatch our house again.
Would you describe the process of thatching?
I always started at the right-hand gable of the house. The first job was to remove what remained of the last coat of thatch or any rotted thatch underneath, and then patch any holes and create a firm base for the new thatch. I thatched vertically in strokes of about 2.5 feet wide. I started at the eave or bunt-up, as we used to call it, and thatch in layers. I would place the layer of straw on the roof and put a scallop called a stretcher across it, and then peg in with the 3 twisted scallops called keepers. I would then dress the straw with the legget to form a neat finish. When I was finished dressing, I would always put bluestone along the stretcher to deter mice. This process was repeated about 20 times until I get the top of the roof. The final layer was done with bobbins, which I made by twisting small handfuls of straw in a special way. This was called a comb, and it was dressed with scallops to create a nice decorative design. There were about 15 strokes in one side of a normal house, and when the job was done, I always sprayed the entire roof with bluestone to preserve the roof and keep away insects which attracted birds.
Who thatched in your area in the past?
Mike Murphy, a local man, who taught me how to thatch. I can remember Paul Paddy Craven, James Graney, Tommy Hennelly, Mickey Morton and his son Jimmy thatching in this village. Some of the local men were able to thatch their own houses. My grandfather Manus Duggan used to thatch our house. May the Lord have mercy on them all.
How did they go about building a new house in the 1800s?
Most of the houses were faced south to maximise light and heat from the sun. Many of the houses had no back door or windows, mostly due to the light tax, but also to protect from cold northerly winds. The original windows were very small. There were 4 paned windows, each pane measuring about 9 by 8 inches. The reason why they were so small is because there was a light tax applied by the landlord if they were over a certain size. This tax was called daylight robbery by the tenants. So that is where the phrase daylight robbery is supposed to have come from. The door was fully made from timber and a half door was put just outside this. The half door served many purposes. Its main purpose was to let in light without being taxed and also kept out the draught. It kept the children in and kept the animals and fowl out. The full door was nearly always open during daylight hours in good weather. I have been kindly asked by Down Heritage Society, whom I have been a member of, to put this together, and I am delighted to do so. The quality of some of the videos may have suffered over time, but I hope you enjoy watching. Here we have on display here samples of thatch houses down the years. This is the 17th century, the 18th century and the 19th century. Now it says any time from about 1650 on. This was the type of house it had. One door, and the earlier ones didn't have any window. It was only a one-roomed house. We had a fire in the centre of the house, and actual fact only a hole in the roof allowed the smoke to come through. Then they improved a little bit, and they developed a room inside. Just a small fire here in the centre of the living room. When we move on to the 18th century, and they got a two-roomed house with a chimney on the eastern side of the house. The majority of these houses with chimneys on them were built facing southwards. But this one, the 18th century one, you had two rooms plus a small kitchen. And the fire, the smoke and the sparks from the fire went on towards the east, seeing that this house would be faced to the south. But then in the 19th century, you have the house that we can see around the countryside at the moment. We had three big rooms, and they took a chance, their courage, and they built a room on the eastern side of the house. We go back again, 17th, 18th and 19th.
How did they go about building a new house in the 1800s?
Firstly, they had to get what was called permission to build from the landlord. Their old house had to be in poor condition before the landlord would grant permission to build. A man told me this story. When people were selecting a plot for their new house, they would put 4 spoons down on the ground, one in each corner of the foundation, and leave overnight. If they were moved overnight, it was considered unlucky to build. They believed the fairies would move them if they were building on their own path. They would then select a new plot and keep going until the spoons were not removed.
How were the roofs originally constructed in this area?
The bog scars were the top layer of bog on which heather and grasses were growing. The roots of the heather and grass kept the peat together. This formed a solid base for the scallops to get a grip on. 2 layers of thatch were put on the new roof to make it waterproof. The timber used for the roof was sourced in the local wooden crag. Rafters were made from small trees about 10 inches thick. There was an uneven number of rafters used in the roof. This was the fish row. It was considered unlucky to have an even number in the rafters. The rafters were tied together with collar ties. Lighter branches were placed horizontally on top of the rafters to act as support for the bog scraws, which was tied in with straw ropes, or suvguns as they were known. I met with Michael Keary in 1993, and we made a short video about thatching materials here in our backyard. Michael is sadly no longer with us, but I am eternally grateful to him. May he rest in peace. Amen. I would like to thank Michael's family for their kind permission to use the video.
Can be used in thatching. Plus his method of trashing. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jonjo, or ask Jonjo a few questions on the different materials. Jonjo, you might point out to us the different materials that are used, please.
Well, Mick, on this platform here, I have 3 straw materials and 4 water-based materials. First of all, we have the widely grown corn and oats. Then we have barley. And the third one is wheat. Now, there's another variety, another corn grown called rye. But at the moment, I cannot find any rye straw. Now we'll move on to the water-based ones. And this is what they call the bulrush, almond rush, sedge. There's some other name for this now, but the sedge is locally known here. And then we move on to the water reed. And I might come back now again and explain them. Oats is not widely used for thatching, as it has well resistance to weather. Breaks down in a very short time. With contraction and expansion, these reeds breaks down. And so it applies to the barley. But in the cornfield, I move along to the number 1 in thatching. It can give a lifespan. I have seen it recently of 45 years. The recorded test lasted 45 years. Where the straw itself was dipped in bluestone, put on at about 9 to 12 inches, around 10 to 11 inches at least anyway, of straw. And very well kept over the years. It was recombed about every 5 years.
Right.
But I'm not worried about the seed. I'm only worried about the straw itself, for which I get great demand when I sow it.
Right. And do you sow many acres of this?
No, I do about 2.5 acres. 2.5 acres. But in preparation for thatching, it takes a lot of work over the winter months.
Well, we may have a look at that later on.
Yes, but at the moment, this is the straw itself.
Right.
Now, this is the prepared. This is how the straw is prepared.
That's what it's tried. The seed is taken out of the
seed is taken out of, it's cleaned. That's
no grass in the foot like what you have here.
No.
Right.
And no seed.
Is that a difficult process?
It's very difficult. You were talking about 2 men only getting about through 200 a day. I'll say about 24 bundles.
In relation to what area would that cover then roughly? Take for example the house we're thatching at the moment.
Each hundredweight would take something like 2 feet.
2 foot wide strips.
Yes, yes.
The height of the pitch of the roof.
Yes, yes.
Right. So.
You were talking about the same time in preparation as you would for actual thatching the house.
Right. And is that a specialised skill then, preparing, is it, would you say?
I would, yes.
Is it as important as thatching itself?
It is important. Thatching begins the day you go to sow the seed. You want to know your variety. You want to know to place it a little thicker than ordinary seed, so that you don't get the little reed too thick.
Right, you want them uniform?
You do, and as well, I said earlier on the day you went out to sow the seed, you don't want to apply too much nitrogen.
Straw a bit too weak, is it? Or?
It's bit too brittle.
Too brittle,
yes.
Right.
And
that's a very healthy looking straw. It has that nice yellow. Would the harvesting play a big part in
yes, that could be harvested maybe a few days before time. When there was probably a little shade of green.
Is it possible for us to have a look at the method of harvesting that you use? No. I'm not saying that we can see you cutting it today.
Yes.
But what methods do you use?
The method used, which is the best method to use, is the reaper and binder. there's a lot called the self-binder,
Right.
because it actually puts the straws, puts the sheaves together much better than cutting them by with a mowing machine or cutting them by the scythe as they did long ago.
Right.
Yeah, but remember in the olden days when they cut this corn, this type of corn, they cut it with a hook.
That's right.
And the sheaves are no bigger than that. And what they put into a sheave of corn when they cut it by the hook was 3 hands.
3 handfuls.
3 handfuls.
Right.
And the reason for the 3 handfuls is that it made just a lovely sheave for hand slashing. And when I say hand slashing, that would be the beating of that particular bundle against a stone or some hard object.
To get the seed out.
To get the seed off. So they didn't have to be loosening off any band. If they had 3 handfuls,
Right.
they tied it.
Right.
And the method they had tying at that time, say the sheave is laid, the 3 handfuls is laid on the ground like that,
Right.
and it's
Yes.
taken up. 3, no more or no less. And they're bound at what they call the American bind.
Why the American bind? Would they not have some...
They had, the
Technique at all.
majority of people did. Now you had the old Irish bind, which was this. Now the American bind was, you stood up, actually binding the corn.
Right.
But in the old Irish bind, it was something like this.
You're on your knees,
No, you're on.
and you're down on your
And you're
gurgages, the
good with it. And it's a lot more physical work. Now you can see, I'll repeat that.
Okay. Very good.
This is the American bind. I'm in an upright position.
Right.
I'm only using my 2 hands. I deliver the sheaf in an upright position.
Now, as we're talking, as you were saying, the seed is removed from that.
The seed
Is it
removed.
very important that all the seed is out?
It's very important that all the seed is out. Now again, if a thatcher come across straw with some seed in it, it's no harm to have the seed, some seed,
Right.
but to keep that on the inner part of the house. There can be no seed along the region, or what we call the bob line.
Because the seed needs moisture, is it?
Yes, it needs moisture. But when this is placed on a roof, it could take 15 years before any moisture will get into that, and by the time the powder germination is gone.
Right. Okay.
But it's good practice when I'm thatching that I always put a little shake of bluestone or copper sulphate in with this seed to prevent mice or rats from going through.
Okay, it puts them off.
It puts them off, yeah, it does.
Okay.
But as I mentioned, of the 3 straws,
Right.
this is by far the best.
Yes, so
It's miles ahead. This barley was very little used.
it's very short, this barley, as a rule, is it?
Barley is short. Barley was very, very little used. But quite a lot of people use this. Because
Would that be in the latter years now? I would say going back the late 50s, early 60s.
the late 50s was all onto wheat and straw.
Is that right?
Yeah, but the very odd one. And you'll see this here. Maybe the odd one now, this was cheaper to buy.
It was easier grow as well.
It was easier to grow. It was cheaper to buy. But I often said the cheap buying is the dearest at the end, because you'd only get about a third of the life of that as you would from the wheat. Wheat and straw.
When you're talking about the life, then what span would you give that?
I give this, I'd say about 10 years by hand slashing it. I would give this about 6 years. And you could be talking about anything from 20 to 35 for this. Depending on the height and the variety of straw. You could, if you got a bad variety of straw, your life could be halved, back to 2/3.
So is this the reason that you, when you're thatching a house, you like to use your own material?
Yes, I do.
Because you grow, as you have said already, the day you're selecting your material is the day you sow it.
The day you sow it, yes. Now another good practice for thatching would be, and I have got this from the man that taught me how to thatch, the thatcher should always buy the straw for the client's thatching, for the house.
Right.
The man who owns the house should always approach the thatcher to buy straw, because there are quite a number of finer points that the thatcher will see that the ordinary person buying straw won't see.
In other words, you know your material.
I know material,
and it's important.
There could be a lot of shorter ears in it. There could be weeds. There could be some grasses. And maybe often it could be too short. And the problem they had some years ago was it could be too long. Because if you go back in the 50s, you had wheat that always grew up the height of the person himself.
Right.
Now you have it down to barely level.
Right. And is too long? If it's too long, what disadvantage would that be?
The disadvantage would have, if you have a straw very long, you have to put on a lot of it. Because as you place your straw on the house,
Right.
as I have said already, you have to put your stretchers halfway between the base and the outer thatch. That is generally practice. Now, if you had very long straw, you would have a lot of straw building up here in front of you, resulting in, when you have a lot of straw and it's very long, it would raise up to the length, but you'd have to raise this here, resulting in putting on, we say, maybe 15 inches of straw.
Instead of the normal.
Instead of the normal, yes.
8 inches.
8 to 10 inches, yes. And that straw, as you can see, is the normal, would be normal now. Any longer now, you could maybe have to put on a bigger coat.
So I have no doubt, John Joe, talking to you about straws anyway. Wheaten straw is your favourite straw.
Yes, favourite straw, yes.
And especially your Liscaninane, is it?
Liscaninane, yes.
I hope I got the pronunciation right.
Yes.
Right, is your favourite. Now, may we move on to the... We'll say the bulrushes, and we have the field rushes, is it called?
Common rush.
Common rush, that are known as, and the sedge and the reeds.
Reeds, yeah.
Would the reeds be the most common used of those?
Well, it's the most common used now.
But not in the past?
Not in the past, no. Because they weren't able to harvest them.
Yes, you might tell us a little bit about
First
the
of all,
different materials.
these, I will go to how they're used. These are the four water-based materials that I have. This is the bulrush. This is the common rush. This is sedge, the sedge we call it. And this is the water reeds. Now I'll go back in them again. This is the bulrush, which the roots of it grows completely underwater.
And where did you harvest those? Where would you harvest
I got
those?
this in our local bog. I got it grown in a drain.
Right.
Now the thing about this is this was very little used down the years. It makes a lovely looking thatch. It was easily got, but
Easily got?
Yeah.
In the water?
in the water. But it broke down under weather conditions again, because you had a big reed with somewhat of a soft material in the centre, and with expansion and contraction, you had only 3 or 4 years use. 3 to 4 years. So I don't think that would be used at all nowadays.
There's a lot of labour involved if you have to thatch that
Well,
off.
it's material and times, yes, labour.
Time is the
Well,
makes it expensive.
you mentioned there is easily got. It was in our bog some years before 1954, before the cut of drainage. That was very easily got. You could get acres of it. But now it has all disappeared. And in other words, you could expect that this is what's growing now in this place, or either that.
the common rush.
The common rush. Because the common rush grows on dry ground. Boggy ground. Dry ground. That would be the bulrush. Now we move on to the common rush.
Right.
I made a little research on the common rush, and the common rush is still widely used and makes a good thatch.
Has a good lifespan then as well?
It would have a nice, about half of the reed. But
In relation to the barley straw that we've talked earlier,
something like the barley straw.
same duration?
Same duration, yes.
And what in appearance?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And is it hard to work with?
Very easy work. So only recently I read about it. It's being used, where it's being used now. Say for instance people live in their old thatched houses and they have this growing in their land. They can very easily harvest it, and it can be harvested at any time of the year because it's an evergreen. Rushes are green all the year round.
So you have to season them or anything after cutting? Or
Well, there has to be a drying out.
a drying out?
Yes, drying out, that's all, yeah, drying out process. And that has to take place in June and December, the same thing. And it's very cheap thatch and very cheap material for a man that would have these grown in his land. And especially for out offices. And I have seen a house down in Clare that was thatched with one of these. And it was beautiful. Because it's a very close relation to the sedge. Very, very close.
Sedge is a weaker material.
A weaker material, but
It's very flexible material.
but it has a longer life.
Sedge is a longer life.
Sedge is a longer life. Again, but that I have heard about seen a house now that was thatched. It was just beautiful, with a straw ridge, straw bobbins.
Straw with.
Straw.
Why does it not look good in its own bobbins?
You can't make it bobbins. It's too sharp.
And it's too brittle to
break down.
Right.
Yeah, that would be the field rush.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to say that what we do with that is we put chemicals on it to kill it, because it will be classed as a weed. So you move
Now,
on.
there's a bit of a hit in that. Does that make any difference?
No. There's no seed there.
There's no seed.
No seed. No.
And this is a weed. Those weeds and that is.
What is it? That'd be cleaned out. That would be. I'd say that's what you call a vetch.
Right.
It's of the vetch family. This lad.
Right.
Is of the vetch family.
Okay. That's very good. Okay, we'll let you move on to the sedge then. You might tell us.
Yeah. This is the sedge, and this was a lovely roof which was properly done. Again, it was put on like the rushes. I have seen sedge used several houses here in our village in the 50s and 60s, and it looked lovely with a straw bobbins, a straw ridging. It looked lovely with a straw ridging. Now it made a lovely coat. It was easily got.
How do you mean we easily got? What type of land would you grow that in now? Wettish land?
Wettish land.
Marshy land.
Marshy land, yes. But it's land you could walk on. Right. And you could cut it, before 1954 you could cut that like you could corn, cut with a scythe.
It's a bit like grass. It's a heavier material.
That's the grass family.
Right.
And
The wetter the land, the stronger the
it would be, yes.
straw of it.
And I forgot
the air of it or whatever you term you like to use, yeah?
I forgot to say earlier on, when I mentioned all water-based, these have to grow on, but that has to get its roots are in the water. These roots are under water. These are roots of the common rush and of the sedge. It's just marshy ground, you can walk on it. You could even graze ground better because of that. Now this was used for thatching. It also had another great advantage. Say a house was where the spots would begin to wear down. Patching. That was ideal for thatching. Because within a year it had the same colour as the house that was thatched.
Okay.
So
just one more question on that as well. Could that be used for feed or anything like that?
No. But livestock would eat it.
They would.
They eat it the first growth. They would, yes. But I'm feeding value, I don't know about this. Now that was
the reeds.
I'll tell you about the water reeds, yes. Now I go back to where I started earlier on.
Yeah.
I mentioned about the oats, I mentioned about the barley, and I mentioned about number one, which is wheat. And we move on to the bulrush, common rush, to the sedge. And here I am at number one for the water-based materials.
Can we have a look at that? It's very long, isn't it?
In some areas, that is probably a 2-year growth.
A 2-year growth?
A 2-year growth.
Could you tell us a bit about the harvesting anyway first?
The harvesting of this it can be only harvested in the dormant period of the grown plant, which is from December to the end of February. And you're very limited to time with them. And you're also out in the wintry of the year.
And what depth of water would they be growing in now?
You could drive in with a boat. It could be up to 2 foot of water, down to 6 inches of water.
And locally here, can you harvest it?
It is growing. It is along the banks of the Column, but I think there are only a couple of men that have taken it up.
Well, there is people harvesting it at the moment. It's available.
It's available, it is. But as I mentioned earlier on, talking about a variety of wheat,
yes.
There's also varieties that can differ an awful lot from lake to lake.
And what's the quality you have here now?
The quality is good because the reed is small. Right. Now you could get a bigger reed. The bigger the reed is, well again, you can't have the reed too small, or you can't have it too big.
Right.
But I'd say that is a nice reed for thatching.
But to me it doesn't look very flexible. Would it be hard to work with?
The reeds, you could very near compare them to scallops, to hazelnuts. They're no way flexible. Right. And in fact, when you were putting up reeds on a house, you cannot put them up as you would with straw in bundles. They have to be tied going up.
Tied before you...
Tie them in little bundles like that. As I have seen it being done, maybe other thatches could be different. They're tied in little bundles like that. And when you have your tying around them, say the keepers to keep it in the house.
Right, you showed us the keepers and the...
You can cut off the strings and pull away the little tines. And then you can work it into one section. Right. Right. You can't, you're not able to handle as you would with the straw. You can take handfuls of straw. Yeah. But for this, you just cannot put up a handful and a handful after each other. Because it would just slip down on you. Right. So what happens is that they tie them in little bundles, put in their stretchers and their tines, and then you can cut out the inner tines that's on them.
Well, getting back to the harvesting, you said that it have to be harvested between December and February.
December and February, yes.
No, you said they have to go out in boats, they have to cut it.
Yes, yes.
They take it in. Do they have to is there a drying out process for those as well, for this material?
There is a little drying out process, also a cleaning process.
How do you mean cleaning now?
There's water grasses.
Like some what you're
putting off, yes.
And does it take long to, in other words, to save it, to get to dry it out, or what method did they use?
I'd say that it'd be all just to get it dry only. Because when you cut it...
They're tied into bundles?
They're tied into bundles then. When you move into the month of December,
yes,
every second day is wet, or at least there's moisture in the air anyway. And this is being cut in water. And all has to be done with it, to my understanding of it anyway, is that you get it dry as it is now. There'll be no saving. Right. There'll be no drying off and reduced or anything like that. That you would take out the bundles of reeds, and I have only seen pictures of the drying area now. So for a fine day, they open up this, dry out the reeds, and tie them back into saleable bundles, or detachable bundles, as the case may be.
The wheat was sown in March, April. The variety we used was called Squarehead Master, which was a long straw variety, suitable for thatching. A bed sheet called a brawleen was used to make a type of apron for carrying the seed. A sharp scythe was very important, and it had to be sharpened very often to cut the straw cleanly. I used to cut around the headlands with the scythe to make room for the tractor and binder. Here my friend is knocking the straw forwards and inwards with a handle, which helped make a tidier job and left the straw easier to take and bind afterwards. A sickle was used in olden times before the scythe, but as you can see it was a very slow and back-breaking method of cutting. And McCormack Deering, reaper and binder, seen working here, pulled by a Matthew Ferguson 35 tractor. It's crushed the straw which is knocked onto a canvas bed by wooden beaters and conveyed up into the binding mechanism, where the sheave is formed and tied, and then kicked out of the machine onto the ground. This was a great machine when it worked properly. It made a much tidier job of making the sheave and binding by hand, and only 2 people were needed to cut the cordon. The sheaves were made into sloops which had 14 sheaves, 3 inside and 2 outside, each side, and 4 for the head. After 10 to 14 days seasoning in the stooks, the sheaves were gathered and made into stacks. We used to put about 40 stooks in a stack. Here I am on my knees laying the sheaves, always keeping the butts outside and the seed inside. Anthony's working the sheaves to me. This was also an important job. Note how he's working them to me on my right with the butts out. Making a stack was a specialised job. Firstly, branches of a hawthorn tree were laid on the ground to create a base. I am working clockwise, laying the sheaves one after another. The sheaves were laid in a circular shape to form the base of the stack. The finished stack was thatched to protect it for the winter. A farmer took great pride in having straight, neat stacks. My father Thomas was a great man to make a stack of corn.
The old here and the new. Could you tell us a bit about this?
Yes.
I'm sure you have some.
This is the actual raw material of the hand slash straw.
Right.
This is the finished product. So,
How do you go about that?
in my own little wisdom, I invented a small thrasher, and that would be coupled with the old and the new.
This is the old.
That's part of the old Baird thrasher.
When would that date? What period would that
That
be
was
used?
dated now from the 3rd of the century right up to about 1925. And it was like the coming of the television to our lifetime, which was a godsend. So it was something wonderful that you could thrash with a thrasher worked by horses rather than having to work on your arm slashing the straw.
So this leads us, where did the tractor come in then? Where does the tractor come in then?
This little contraption here is only just the thrashing box of the old thrasher. So I've converted it into be driven with a tractor. Rather than spend all my winter doing something like this.
Thrashing is getting the seed out.
That's thrashing at the seed. That is what they call the hand slashed straw.
Right.
So you could know the physical side of that. The work of the arms. And to do something like a ton of that and to work on it for about 2 weeks and then 2.5 weeks certainly was very hard work. So I converted this into driven with a tractor. Now if you could start up the tractor for a
The new and the old work together. How the straw is pulled out and the grass is pulled out.
I take a handful of straw and clean the weeds and grass out of it by pulling it through a bed of nails a number of times. This was called scutching. Then I insert the seed heads into the thrashing wheel, repeating the process 3 or 4 times to remove all the seed. We are working a winnower here, which is a machine to separate the seed from the chaff. It had an internal drum with 4 wooden blades and an axle forming a fan. When the drum was twisted, it created air, which blew the chaff and dust from the grain. The grain was used for livestock feed, and some was saved for sowing following season. Turning the winnower drum handle by hand with carved handle. So we invented a contraption to work with by thatcher.
Of course, that's the thatcher material, the henchleaf sweetest straw. The old traditional thatcher here in the west of Ireland, you'd have the hazel rod or the sally rod. These can be got locally. And mallet. And the shears. They're the old traditional things that was used. Some people use knives. But with the introduction of English thatchers and the thatching of the reeds and thatching on solid base, there's what they call the wire tying system. And these are wire tines that tie on your thatch on solid basis. It can be a roof of timber or a roof of lats of timber. This is a new lat introduced. It's called a legget, which puts the thatch into position. You need the shears. You need the snips to put wirings. Now you also need the drill to drive these screws into the timber base. And you want this Lios Ceann to want it to tighten the wires. I think they call it a bag tile or a wire tile. Well, in this little demonstration I'm going to show you the method of tying on the thatch to the roof. The older system, as I mentioned, the old traditional Western Ireland thatcher on the thatched roof, you had the system, it was scalloped on. That was the method of scallop. You have the stretcher and you have the keepers. Now if you wanted to put straw, thatched straw onto a timber base or timber lats, you can either nail it on. By the way, they'll be nailed on to timber battens inside. A very tight system. They're nailed on to timber battens inside. And the other method is where you screw wire tines onto battens inside. And these are prepared wires. And this is a little contraption that we have worked out ourselves. Now you have to fish and find the batten, which I did now at home. That wire is screwed on to the batten inside. Again, I have to fish for the batten. I have it. As in the stretchers with the scallops, I'm tying with the scallops or the nailing on. You all the time use the stretcher. A great system for tying on to the roof. The wire is screwed on to the batten, timber batten inside. You can tighten it in. That's the third method of tightening. So of course you don't use the mallet here. That is what tightens the straw. Now this is where you come in with the legacy. The legate puts the straw into position here. As you have seen already, without touching another man's house. You just repeat that about every 8 or 9 inches in straw and about 15 inches for water reeds. But that's a very good method for tying on a roof, as is the nailing on. And of course, you can't let down the old system of our ancestors that was tied on with scallop. So there you have 3 methods. We worked in the legate to get the roof into position. You notice that I'm creating a roof of a house already. That's the eave. That would be the finished thatch. And this house here is a big house compared to thatched houses in the country.
They put bluestone on every run of it there then?
Yes, for two reasons. One is to preserve the straw and the scallop. And the second one is to prevent any mice from getting in. Because usually mice come from the inside and they come out to run a scallop. As soon as they arrive here, they're blinded.
What makes up the bluestone?
So it's copper sulphate. It's just the copper. And these are three keepers. And they're put on in layers. See, I'd meet that now the next time. I'd meet that one after that. And so forth, till I get to the top. Now when you put on a stretcher,
The whole thing about thatching has enough scallops in it.
the stretcher, it has to be a strong scallop. And when I'm putting in the scallop, I have to put it upright like that. It's about 18 foot from eave to ridge. I'd say about 3 foot longer than an ordinary house now. It will take 1,000 bundles of straw and 4,000 scallops and about 25 days work. And then placing the stretcher opposite the one with the other line. Tie down with keeper. Again, note how I put the keeper upward.
Keep this in the fire going to hold against the storm.
All the time making sure that you have a proper joining. Never lighted straws I put on. Again about 7 or 8 inches. And a day's work is about 2 lines like that. Did you imagine how to see me at it? I'd never get there.
Here I am making bobbing of the ridge, Alcombe as it was known in the past. I take a small handful of straw. I make 2 halves of it, turning one against the other.
Open that and
and then twist the straw to form the bob. I take a small piece of straw, twist it and tie the bob with it. Each bob covers about 2 inches in width. The average thatched roof would take about 220 bobs each side. It would take me a day to make enough of bobs for one side of the house. Scallops are normally cut in a hazelwood from November to March. The scallops are pointed at both ends and are about 2.5 feet long. The pointing job was often done by the house owners at night in the middle of the kitchen. It would take about 3,000 scallops to thatch both sides of an average sized cottage. Now when I'm about to point a scallop, in the pointing of the scallop you have 3 cuts. 1, 2, 3. On the left is a bundle of scallops, as they were cut from the hazel. On the right is a bundle of pointed scallops, ready for thatching. The old people had a good one. How many cuts will you give a well-pointed scallop? The answer was none, because if it was well-pointed, it didn't need pointing. The scallop is twisted at about 1/3 of the length from the lighter end.
How did your son Anthony learn how to thatch?
Similar to how I learned it myself. He was tending me when I was thatching our own house, and he showed an interest in thatching. I encouraged him to try thatching a piece, and he picked it up very fast. In fact, one day, while I was gone to Dublin, he thatched 2 strokes on his own. I was very happy with what he had done, and you could not tell the difference between our work. We are seen here thatching together, repairing the back of our house. Anthony can thatch on his left, kitog, and also on his right. Comes in handy when he is thatching the last stroke on a house. As we are finishing this video on St. Bridget's Day, I feel it is appropriate to show you some St. Bridget's crosses which were made out of the thatching straw. This is a cross made by my grandfather, Manus, before 1911. This is a cross I made myself for the new millennium in the year 2000. This is a cross made by my son Anthony this year, 2020. I would like to thank all those people who helped me put this video together. There was an old Irish saying, "Ye hear Lorna Goiche, Lorna Scullop," which means a windy day is not the day for the scallop. Shinny, hope you enjoy watching the video on thatching.